The AMC Gremlin is remembered as Detroit's greatest punchline. The accepted story is simple: a cheap, ugly mistake from a company that did not know what it was doing. But in March 1967, 3 years before Ford or General Motors had a subcompact on the road, the board of AMC quietly approved a small, fuel-efficient car for under $3,000. They saw the future of the American automobile before anyone else in Detroit. The problem was never their vision. It was the $22 million they had left to prove it, and what that gap between foresight and survival would cost them. On March 13, 1967, American Motors Board of Directors met in Detroit with a single priority: approve a new subcompact, but only if it could be built on a shoestring. The official memo from that day was blunt. Any new model had to be engineered from the existing Hornet platform, and the project's total tooling costs could not exceed a strict upper limit. The language was measured, but the implications were clear. MC's engineers were ordered to create a new car using the presses and dies already on hand, with minimal new investment. The Hornet, AMC's mid-size staple, sat on a 108-inch wheelbase. For the new car, that figure dropped to 97 inches. This was not just about shrinking the car. It was about saving on the cost of stamping dies and assembly jigs. By trimming 11 inches from the Hornet's unibody, AMC could keep using the same expensive tools, sidestepping the need for a costly redesign. Internal engineering memos from 1968 and 1969 spelled out the arithmetic. Every inch saved meant thousands of dollars not spent on new tooling. The board's budget cap, cited in later reports as just over $13 million, left no room for a clean sheet design. The Gremlin would be built by subtraction and reuse, not by innovation. Parts sharing became policy. The front suspension, dashboard, and rear axle all came straight from the Hornet. The body and white stamping dies, some of the priciest assets in any auto plant, were reused with only minor tweaks. Engineering chief Roy Abernethy commissioned a study comparing 3 options: stretch the Rambler, start from scratch, or cut down the Hornet. The Hornet solution prevailed, not for technical brilliance, but because it fit the board's financial boundaries. This boardroom decision shaped every inch of the Gremlin. The car's abrupt rear, tight back seat, and hefty curb weight all stemmed from the platform choice. Even the Gremlin's range of engines, from the 199 cubic inch 6-cylinder to the 304 cubic inch V8, reflected AMC's need to use existing stock. The board's memo did not mention style or performance. It focused on die, expense savings, and survival in a market ruled by giants. The Gremlin was not designed to dazzle. It was designed to exist, built on the arithmetic of necessity that would echo through every decision AMC made in the years that followed. AMC's board did not just want a small car, they wanted the cheapest American car on the market. In June 1969, a marketing memo set a bold target, a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $2,995. That figure was not chosen at random. It was a direct challenge to Detroit's giants and a signal to buyers who had not seen a new car priced under $3,000 since the early 1960s. every decision that followed was shaped by that number. With the price ceiling locked in, the pressure shifted to the design team. Dick Teague, AMC's vice president of styling, became the unlikely hero of this story. Legend has it, the Gremlin's outline was born not in a design studio, but in mid-air, sketched by Teague on the back of a Northwest Orient Air sickness bag as his flight cut through a spring thunderstorm. The story sounds apocryphal, but the original sketch survives in the archives, complete with Teague's looping signature and a date from late 1968. The drawing shows a car with a sharply chopped tail and a stubby profile, a shape dictated less by fashion than by what could be stamped with existing Hornet dies. Teague's challenge was not just to create something new, it was to create something new out of old parts. The Gremlin's abrupt rear was not a stylistic whim. It was the direct result of reusing the Hornet's body in white stamping presses, which could only be trimmed so far before the tooling became useless. The die share dictated the car's proportions: a long hood, a short rear overhang, and a back seat squeezed between the wheel wells. The rear glass was fixed in place, not because it looked good, but because the cost of a new hatchback die was out of reach. Even the dashboard and much of the interior trim came straight from the Hornet parts bin. Teague's team worked at breakneck speed. The first clay models were built in weeks, not months. There was no time for focus groups or wind tunnel sessions. The goal was simple: get a car ready for showrooms before Ford or Chevrolet could react. The result was a car that looked like nothing else on American roads, a shape born from urgency and constraint, not from committee or trend. The Gremlin's design became its own form of marketing, a rolling billboard for AMC's ingenuity and its desperation. By the time the Gremlin debuted, the $2,995 price tag was stamped on every brochure and ad. The car's odd shape and bargain price drew curiosity, and for a time, real buyers. Underneath the jokes and the jabs, there was a story of creativity under pressure, a company betting everything on a car that had to be cheap, had to be fast to market, and had to look like the future, even if it was built from the past. April 1st, 1970, AMC's Gremlin arrived without the spectacle reserved for Detroit's heavyweights, but its presence was felt immediately. On launch day, dealer showrooms filled with young faces, students, first-time buyers, and 20-somethings drawn by the promise of something new. The price tag, just under $2,000, was a revelation. For many, it was the first time a new American car seemed possible. The press took notice. Motor Trend's early review called out the Gremlin's 28 miles per gallon in city driving, a figure that in 1970 put it in the company of European imports, not domestic compacts. The magazine declared it the most fuel-thrifty American-built car on the market, and noted that its unconventional shape mattered less than its savings at the pump. Car and Driver, in its summer issue, described the Gremlin as a small car with a big personality and pointed to AMC's timing. The Gremlin hit showrooms months before Ford's Pinto or Chevrolet's Vega, giving AMC a rare lead in a segment about to become fiercely competitive. On dealer lots, the response was immediate. Salesmen reported a surge of buyers in their 20s and early 30s, many of whom had never owned a new car. AMC's internal surveys from that first summer confirmed it. Over half of Gremlin buyers were new to the showroom experience. The car's compact size, bright paint, and quirky advertising, if you can't beat 'em, shrink 'em, resonated with college students and young professionals in cities from Los Angeles to Chicago to Seattle. The Gremlin's appeal went beyond price and timing. Its stubby rear and long hood set it apart from the boxy competition. TV and radio ads leaned into its difference, promising a car that was fun, frugal, and just a little bit rebellious. Archival spots captured young drivers weaving through city streets, squeezing into tight parking spaces, and boasting about gas mileage. AMC's research showed the average Gremlin buyer was nearly 10 years younger than the typical Hornet customer, a shift Detroit's bigger players would only chase later. First-year sales topped 87,000 units, far outpacing AMC's expectations. The Gremlin claimed a youth market share unmatched by any domestic rival. Its early success proved that demand for small, efficient cars existed well before the oil crisis forced Detroit to respond. Late in 1973, the world changed overnight. As news of the OPEC oil embargo reached American shores, lines at gas stations stretched for blocks, and the price of a gallon doubled in a matter of weeks. Suddenly, the American love affair with big, thirsty cars collided with a new reality. For AMC, the crisis brought an unexpected surge. The Gremlin, once seen as a quirky outlier, was now exactly what drivers needed: small, simple, and most importantly, less hungry for fuel. Inside AMC's Kenosha plant, the mood shifted from cautious optimism to controlled chaos. Production planners working from hand-typed memos and late-night phone calls scrambled to adjust the line. Orders for Gremlins jumped by more than 30% in the first months of the crisis. Dealers who had struggled to move the car just a year before now called headquarters in a panic, begging for more inventory. The pressure to deliver a more efficient Gremlin landed squarely on the engineering team. AMC had relied on its trusty straight-six engines, but those were never designed for maximum mileage. Now, with buyers demanding every extra mile per gallon, the company turned to a solution already in the works: a 2-liter, 4-cylinder engine sourced from Audi. The deal had been negotiated for export models, but the urgency of the oil shock forced a rapid pivot. By the 1974 model year, Gremlins with the Audi-derived engine rolled off the line, boasting a highway rating of 30 miles per gallon, an achievement that AMC's advertising department wasted no time trumpeting in print and on the airwaves. For a brief window, the Gremlin was more than a punchline. It became a symbol of adaptation, its odd shape and modest size suddenly in sync with the anxieties of the era. Cumulative production soared past the 500,000 mark, a milestone that once seemed out of reach for a car born of leftovers and compromise. The company's internal sales charts from 1974 show a spike unmatched by any other AMC model. For 18 months, the Gremlin outsold expectations, proving that foresight, however imperfect, sometimes gets its moment in the sun. But the pace was relentless. As the gas crisis stretched on, expectations for fuel economy kept climbing. AMC's engineers worked overtime to squeeze more efficiency from a platform that was never truly light or modern. The Gremlin's highway mileage improved, but its heavy steel frame and borrowed parts meant it could only go so far. Still, the car's brief stardom was a testament to AMC's ability to react under pressure, even as the industry's giants began to catch up. Inside the Gremlin, AMC's design shortcuts became clear the moment you sat in the back. The seat was wedged tightly between the wheel wells, offering just 30 inches of legroom, 4 inches less than the Pinto, and with barely enough hip room for 2 adults. Owners wrote in with frustration. Knees pressed against upright seatbacks, heads brushing the headliner, and a door opening so narrow that even average-sized passengers had to twist and duck. One father called it the penalty box. A college student in Milwaukee sent his dealer a yardstick measurement, not enough space for his roommate and a backpack. The wheelbase, chopped to 96.6 inches, forced the rear floor high and the seatbacks nearly vertical, making every ride a cramped ordeal. Weight was another burden. The Gremlin tipped the scales at just under 2,800 pounds, almost 400 pounds heavier than a Volkswagen Beetle and 200 more than a base Pinto. Its heavy steel unibody, borrowed from the Hornet, dulled handling and left the car struggling to match the fuel economy promised in AMC's ads. Even after a lighter 4-cylinder engine arrived, the Gremlin lagged behind its purpose-built rivals. Practicality faltered in the cargo area. The rear glass was fixed. There was no hatch. Loading anything larger than groceries meant folding the front seats and wrestling bags through a small rear opening. Owners improvised, propping the glass open with broom handles or squeezing bicycles through narrow gaps. These frustrations filled dealer reports and warranty claims, chipping away at the Gremlin's reputation for everyday usefulness. For those who drove it, the limitations were not theoretical. They shaped every mile and every errand, leaving a mark that advertising could not erase. By late 1974, AMC's finances were running on fumes. The Jeep acquisition and years of razor-thin profits had drained reserves. That fall, the board approved a $35 million loan, the largest in company history. The terms were strict. AMC had to maintain high warranty reserves, limit capital spending, and meet tough interest coverage ratios. Every borrowed dollar came with new oversight. Each model, especially the Gremlin, faced a cold financial reckoning. Warranty costs for the Gremlin were climbing fast. The 24,000-mile guarantee, once a marketing edge, had become a costly promise. As engines and emissions systems aged, claims poured in. Internal reports showed warranty expenses up nearly 20% in 1 year, hitting $13.5 million for 1974. The new loan demanded a $30 million reserve for warranty claims alone, a burden Gremlin sales could not carry. The board, many of whom had once backed the Gremlin as AMC's bold answer to imports, now debated its future. The numbers were blunt. The Jeep Cherokee was set to launch, offering better margins and a chance at stability. AMC needed factory space and capital for the Cherokee, not for a model whose profits were vanishing under repair bills. By June 1975, the decision was recorded in meeting notes. Phase out the Gremlin by 1978, shift production to the Spirit and Cherokee, and use the freed capacity to strengthen AMC's position in a tightening market. The Gremlin's end was not about failed vision, but the relentless math of survival, a board forced to retreat, trading sentiment for solvency as the industry's pressures closed in. Auto journalists in 1970 did not see a punchline. They saw a bargain. The Gremlin's base price landed at $1,879, making it the cheapest new American car on the market. For that sum, buyers got a 6-cylinder engine and a curb weight that, while heavier than imports, still allowed respectable acceleration. Road tests clocked the V8 equipped Gremlin from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, quicker than a Ford Pinto or Chevy Vega, and even outpacing some larger Detroit sedans. The car's broad engine lineup, including the 304 cubic inch V8, gave it a performance edge that competitors could not match at the price. Dealer price sheets from the era list a fully optioned Gremlin for less than a base Mustang. In the hands of reviewers, the Gremlin's blend of speed and thrift challenged the narrative that cheap meant slow or dull. The spec sheets and stopwatches told a different story. AMC's oddball hatchback could run with the pack and sometimes outrun it. Rows of Gremlins now line up at classic car shows, their once derided shapes drawing crowds of curious onlookers and collectors who see not a punchline, but a piece of American automotive history. Club memberships have climbed, with Gremlin owners trading stories and restoration tips, and auction prices for well-kept models have quietly doubled over the past decade. What began as a practical response to survival now inspires a kind of affectionate nostalgia, a reminder of a company that dared to be different. Meanwhile, AMC's decision to retool Gremlin production lines for the Jeep Cherokee paid off in ways the board could only imagine. The Cherokee became a runaway success, securing profits and laying the groundwork for AMC's later survival. In the end, the Gremlin's legacy lives on, not just in the hands of enthusiasts, but in the DNA of the vehicles that followed, and in the proof that bold ideas sometimes echo far beyond their original moment. Today, as every automaker races to shrink engines and stretch efficiency, AMC's original gamble feels less like a punchline and more like prophecy. The market finally values what AMC saw decades before its rivals. Yet the company that read the signs first did not survive to profit. In an industry still defined by giants, the fate of the Gremlin warns how easily vision gets buried by scale. Share your thoughts below.